Hey y'all, welcome or welcome back. Today we are doing a book review for Cackle by Rachel Harrison. This is a newish book. It came out in September and it was just perfect for October. It is cozy feeling, witchy vibes. Obviously you probably get it from the cover as well, and it was just, I'm so glad that I did get to pick this book up, and now I get to let you guys know all about it too. First off, what is Cackle about? Cackle is about our main character Annie, who has lived all of her life pretty much just playing it safe, doing what is expected, and now she's been dumped by her boyfriend, and they live in New York City and they've been together for 10 years, but he has ended things. She thought they were getting married. He's like, I think we're better as friends. So she is heartbroken and devastated and can no longer afford to live in New York on her teacher's salary. So she finds a job in upstate New York and moves to a small town. And this town is your typical, a book small town. We'll get into that later. But here, as she is still feeling very lonely and everything, she meets Sophie. And Sophie is beautiful and charming and just everything Annie kind of wishes she could be. She is confident and all of this stuff. But as she starts to meet other people in town too, they seem put off by Sophie. They seem afraid of her and just, it's something a little weird going on. But she, Sophie's nice to her and she wants a friend very, very bad. So she writes everything off and just keeps, hanging out with Sophie. Some things aren't adding up. Some things are odd. And yeah, it was really weird. I don't remember getting any vibes about it being a thriller or horror or anything from the description that I read. But when I went in to do the Goodreads and everything, updating it, and it's like people were complaining that this isn't a thriller, this isn't a horror, I was like, how did you even get that from the back of the book description? Nothing sounds like that. Because no, it is not. Sure, might it have some spooky moments of, yeah, confusing, maybe, dun dun dun, we're gonna have this happen, we're getting this vibe, but overall, no, overall, this is a super cozy book. It takes place kind of over the period of a year, though most of our focus is of where things are happening is kind of in the fall. She moves to this town the beginning of August, and she moves to the small town of Rowan, and it is your typical small town where it's just got one main street that everything's on. Everybody kind of knows everybody, and she works at the high school in a different town, so she drives to where she works. But yeah, it's just the coziest feeling ever. Everybody says good morning to her, which completely astounds her, being from New York where, most people ignore you. So it's very, very different. And she ends up, getting to know some of these people, and she likes these people, but she doesn't understand why they act weird around her new friend, Sophie. And yes, Sophie doesn't come out and say things sometimes. When Annie will ask her questions, she kind of evades the answers, or she makes offhand comments that is weird, like doesn't sound like for how old she looks. But Annie and Sophie start spending more and more time together, and she really becomes good friends with her. And when the townspeople do try to warn her, she's like, but she's nice, she's my friend. And even if part of her, wonders about it, she's like, I don't care. She is my friend. And that aspect, though, of friendship throughout all of it, it is very sweet. Sure, sometimes Sophie is a bit manipulative and controlling, but she is only trying to help Annie in some aspects too, because Annie has been very depressed, sad, brokenhearted, which of course, she just got dumped right before her 30th birthday too. So that's a big thing. So also we will find out that Annie has pretty much never been alone, never been single. So she's never really learned how to live with herself and be happy with just herself. And that's probably the main theme actually of the book. It can read as a very feminist kind of novel because it is all about her accepting her own self-confidence and her own power and the ability to, be in control of her own happiness and her own life. So when Annie finally decides not to try to make everybody else happy, not to just go with the flow and to do stuff to make her own self happy, that's when she kind of, does actually become happy. Like one point in the book, she actually finally starts cooking for herself. Like she talks about making a full meal just for herself. And she's like, I never saw the point if it was only me, but this is much better than just frozen pizza. I can take care of myself. I can make a full meal or bake a cake or something. And it's just for me. It doesn't have to be for anybody else. And it's like, yes, that's very nice. I'm kind of lazy though. I don't think I want to cook a full meal just for myself, but it is true, you can. And I'm glad that finally starts to make her happy. Because after the breakup, as she does, she goes through a very, very depressed point, and she kind of starts drinking a lot. But, she's going through a really hard time. She's kind of lost all of herself now because she was fully committed to that relationship, to everything in her life that was going that way. And now she's kind of out on her own in this new place, and she doesn't know what to do with herself. And it takes her a while to start to put the pieces back together and figure out who she wants to be. And this whole book is her journey. Some points I will say, of course, in your healing process, in your learning process, you will, maybe take a step back. But I feel like the author took Annie back into her dark place a lot. Or I don't know, maybe we could have done a few other things instead of just, if we are going to go back into our dark hole. I know, that's kind of real life, though it is probably gonna look the same. I understand that. But as we are reading a novel, let's paint it differently for the readers. People go through different kinds of relapses of their sadness and stuff. We could have painted different sides. Oh well, I talked about that too much. Now moving on. The magic in this book, which they never hardly actually come out and say the word witch, even though that's what all the townspeople are kind of afraid of Sophie for, but they never say it. The book only actually comes up with the term once when Annie and Sophie are fighting, and it's just a whole big deal, a whole big scene there. The magic in the book, though, the way it it's never described, but the way you see it happen and everything, the only thing I can really think of it is kind of more like the Halloween Town vibes, the Disney Channel movie. But when she is telling her granddaughter first about it, and she's like, magic is very simple, dear. You just have to imagine what you want and let yourself have it. And that's kind of this book. There's like no consequences, nothing like that. It is just, you want it and you get it. There is, I guess there is one sacrifice, because at one point Sophie does tell Annie that to get everything, you have to give everything up. Still not entirely sure about that line. It does come out to play again, but it doesn't expand on that anymore. It just, she says, I'm ready at some point, and yeah. Okay, moving on, because that's confusing. The little bit of spoilers I have for this book, because it's not super much, especially considering I already kind of said Sophie's a witch and magic, but honestly, you can't talk about the book without just saying that at least a little bit. It even says on the back of the book that she's got a certain power, but it's like, but she couldn't, because so the little bit of spoilers, skip forward now. The first would be with the spiders here. The animal companion in this book is maybe creepy. Some people might not like it because it is a spider, but he's like a very large spider, also why people might not like it. And he acts like a pet. He acts like a dog. It talks about him being, large, and she can pet him because he's fuzzy and he's very smart. He wears party hats. So realistically, the way it is described, it is adorable sounding. As long as you discount the fact that it's a spider most of the time. So if that doesn't bother you, you will probably love Ralph. Ralph is adorable, and he is there for Annie when she is depressed and feeling bad. And it's just, yes, and so smart. So smart. Like, he can understand when she's saying things to him. It's just adorable. So, yes, cute, maybe creepy, animal companion, Ralph the spider, because whatever Sophie's thing is, it's almost like spiders are her, some witches, have magical affinities for certain animals or whatever, and Sophie attracts spiders. There are spiders everywhere in this book, but Ralph is the one that's mostly talked about because he is kind of large and he is very pet-like. Annie even makes him up like a little bed, and it's adorable. And he sleeps in his bed with his sheet over him, and somehow it's adorable. One thing I want to touch on is Annie's transformation. So she does start gaining powers kind of her own. She makes things happen without really realizing, and when she does start to realize that she's doing it and trying to master it, get better at it and everything, it slowly, she does gain more control. Like I give that example of the whiskey after she had found something out, and she's like, I really need a drink, and she brings the whiskey. So yeah, by the end though, when she finally comes to terms with herself, like, I'm gonna be happy by myself, I don't need a guy anymore, I don't want my ex-boyfriend anymore, he's a jerk face, that's all great. She comes to this self-realization, and she's gonna be happy, she's gonna be powerful, she's all good with it, and she realizes her and Sophie are best friends, and Sophie is only trying to look out for her and trying to get her past this bad point in her life. But then she does the whole thing in the mirror, like I said, about you have to give up everything to get everything. And so she tells that to her awesome reflection, because this her she's seeing in the mirror is like her best self, kind of is more than what she's looking like right now. Not much more, but like she can see like she's happier and all this stuff, and like, so she tells herself that, and then all of a sudden, she's just awesome. And she has this whole new mindset of everything about, oh, I'm gonna do stuff for me. I'm not going to worry about what everybody thinks or everybody cares. I'm not gonna try to have a guy anymore. I'm just gonna be happy. Which is great. But then we jump forward in time a little bit to her birthday. It's like March, maybe. And now we're jumping forward to June. And as she's, walking to go to do lunch with Sophie, and she passes the townspeople, and they're nice enough to sing her happy birthday, and they give her like little gifts and stuff, and like the baker had made her a cupcake, but everybody's now acting nervous around Annie, and she tells her, oh, well, thank you so much, but I don't want this right now. And the woman seems all upset and disappointed. I mean, she wasn't mean about it. She's just like, I guess she could have said it, we'll have this for dessert at our lunch picnic, whatever. But everybody just seems super nervous around Annie. And even though she's like, well, old me would have just eaten it even if I didn't want it. It's just the way things were worded and how all of a sudden everybody was acting weird about her. Annie was nice. Sophie was nice too, but Sophie generally gave no Fs and was not afraid to, let people know she would curse them or rumor curse them. I don't know. I just don't understand how Annie went from people liking her and, welcoming her to all of them being afraid of her. And just because she said she didn't want to eat a cupcake right then, what, you're going to act all, oh my God, she's going to do something to me? What happened? Why did we jump like this? What happened? So I didn't like that. I did not like that at all, because I think Annie is still going to be a generally nice person, even if, she isn't going to try and be a people pleaser person. I think she's still going to be a nice person. So that's all the little spoilers. It's not a lot, and it's mostly like, one I liked it, one little rant of why we could have done better. It could have been written nicer, I suppose, to where we agree with Annie of like, yes, stand up for yourself, don't just try to people please. But overall though, I really enjoyed the book. I loved how the cozy vibes were, the friendship, finding yourself and your own power, and yes, everything that it gave off. I liked it. It was a 4-star read, and as you can tell, it is a pretty short book, so you can read it very quickly. Yeah, I would recommend reading it in October or November, because it does give this season vibes of the chillier temperature. A lot of weather and coldy things are kind of talked about, and it's just, yes, the vibe. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this review of Cackle by Rachel Harrison. This book is out everywhere, and it is just a very fun book, so I do hope you guys will pick it up. And this is just a cozy, fun book about friendship and being nice to yourself and being okay with yourself, and finding your own power. Highly enjoyable. I do recommend it, and I hope some of you might check it out now. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.